Government is also making a lot of efforts to make women entrepreneurs and leaders get the recognition, get the chance that they want. But yes, it is some combination of the overall society, the system, and everything else coming together. It cannot remain in isolation. For example, startup being discussed, it's very heartening to know that DPIIT, in last 3 years, all the startups that have been registered, I think the total number is 2,12,283, out of which 48% startups are by women. That's a great contribution, and very soon, some of the issues that we are discussing, that women percentage is less and everything else, is going to look so different very, very soon. And we have a great panel. We have Professor Paul. Sorry for the error, he's not HOD, he's a director there. But he's so humble that it doesn't matter what rank and position he's at. I see him as great man of ideas. You really need to have at least a full cricket team of 11 around him. He throws so many ideas. If you can catch them, implement them, the country will look very different. He's working very hard on creating security and safety right from the base. How the society is structured, how the buildings are made, how towns are planned. Because women's security is a major issue that we will be discussing during the day. So he's already designing that. That's great. So we'll have his contribution. Kal Sagi being here, she's one of the rare, extremely popular leaders who's got a Chief of Army Staff Commendation even after completing the Army service and coming out. Has contributed so much, but continues to be serving EME earlier. We obviously have Soumya, who's into the investments and all. We will definitely come back to you in terms of talking about how exactly the funding is not reaching women. It's also a reality when it comes to action of capital. And when we look at women in security and forensics, the slate is almost empty. And that's where we bring the Kohinoor of the industry, a young girl, Sparsh Sehgal, and I'm sure you all have heard of the Sparsh brand, which is named in her. She's the Chief Growth Officer and bringing huge amount of work. Sparsh is the first company which complied to the Indian requirements of making a CCTV, right? Because, when we look at even the wars which are happening in Gulf or what happened in Venezuela, the cameras, the IT system, the back doors, one of the major ways to win those. So India said, no, we need to have our own cameras and our own system. So she's the one who ensured that India has the first of this CCTV available in the country. So thanks first for that. So considering this overall environment, maybe I want to put Professor Paul on the spot. And sir, while we have Miss Universe, Miss World and commandos in Indian Army, but we also have the index rate of safety which calls India as 131 out of 181 countries. And I want to specifically look at the education sector, where we obviously are saying things are great. We have 43% all college and university faculty as women. But when it comes to vice chancellor and directors, less than 6%. So I want you to obviously talk about both the things. One, what you're doing in terms of ensuring women safe zones and gender equality from the design, that how infra has to be designed equally for all, but somewhere or the other, also this growth channel, where does things start getting stuck up? So both points over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. It's always a pleasure being in your company. I think you are setting a stage for taking my job on the lighter side. Okay, now let me put the context of yes, no, the organizations have more number of people, especially the kind of organizations that we have, like educational institution dealing with architecture and planning. Way back in 85, there was only one girl in our class and she also left. And you can imagine how miserable it must have been. But today, 80% are all women. So there's a transformation, and how women are coming forward, hitherto considered to be a very, kind of a crude, rude profession of construction and going to the sites, etc. Where initial days, I remember when women alumni used to go to the field, and there used to be a problem of even the washrooms, and today we have a almost equal participation in it is it is better. So, so there is a considerable transformation. Now, now the so when we are looking at the leadership and entrepreneurship on opportunities, so uh, things are difficult for everyone, but women particularly. So what we've been looking at is that we call accessibility in and the safety security Sparsh is looking after, and the others are raising their concern. So we see that the accessibility is a big bottleneck in our cities. So beyond a point, there is a sense of inhibition because the kind of things that we have, not that everybody is a thug, thief, and a kind of a violent person on the street, but there is a apprehension. Now, when we try to interpret accessibility, which we consider as putting a ramp, putting something here and there for the people who are Divyangjan, etc. So at the city level, if the full advantage of city has to go to everybody, including the people who have one or the other vulnerability, and this is where women come into the picture, very, very important. Now, so what is it that we have? It's not that you need a ramp for a woman. She can manage. But if there is no adequate lighting, there is no, of course, convenience is another part. So how does it inhibit? In that space, it is, if I can use an extended definition of Divyangjan, you have created, Divyang situation for a 50% of population. Because there is, there's an uncertainty. So we thought that let's look at, this accessibility across, and women particularly. Now when you start interpreting, it becomes further more complicated. We are sitting in a very different kind of an audience. But if you look at the, people who are in small towns, or even any, say, Trans Yamuna normal areas, a lady going with a child is very different from one of us sitting here. So there it is the challenge for her own self, and if the child is vulnerable to be stolen, so you're not only protecting yourself, you are worried about something else as well. So it's a accessibility, the vulnerability is far more compounded. Now, there we see that there is a possibility of her taking a step which is not only harming yourself, but putting yourself in a very different situation. So when we see from that perspective, have we actually looked at those kind of limitations where we as planners and we as the city managers, have we done enough? I think there's a problem. Now within that stratification, again, if you see, you have kind of किसी का टांग टूट गया, ठीक है? Now you can have expecting mothers. In which bracket of disability you are? But for you, the definition of accessibility is completely different. And in that situation, if you are expecting somebody to perform, we are giving opportunities and all that, but does the city or the space outside or our dealing with enablers beyond the four walls, are they enough? And do we have we done enough for that? I think there's a long way in that area, and that's where I just mentioned that we're looking at creating few spaces, few corridors where we look at the wider definition of accessibility, where this particular aspect is very, very important. Because the moment you start looking at, so if you make safe from the women perspective, I can tell you it's 10 times safer because it multiplies. So that segment or the definition of safety, suddenly we find that when you go to, India Gate, there is that Coast Guard, headquarters, and there is a nice boat, and there is a hedge around. So we were just trying to, there was something that I wanted to see. I was taking a picture. So, I mean, it looks nice if you drive past. But on the other side, some people are just loitering, sleeping, and they could be, anything. Now, knowing that's what it is, would you be comfortable? So why can't that transparency of the space can be created so that if you walk past, you're safe? Now, these barriers, the city is full of that. And this is not the only city which is full of that. Not everybody is not Colonel Changi that she'll handle. But everybody needs to protect. So we need a complete paradigm shift in the way we deal with our, responsibilities as enablers. And that's where my profession comes in very strongly. And we do recognize that there's still a long way ahead.
Thank you, sir. Very useful comment. Yeah, from there, maybe I'll go to Colonel Sagi and seek her comments. But at the same time, even taking cue from Professor Paul, Sagrika, Ambassador Gurjeet, that on one side, well, women give birth, they are creators. They are the one who bring child up. They're preservers. They are progressively managing growth of everybody. And from there, as General Goswami was sharing with me, if you look at the first security for any individual, boy or a girl, is given by women itself. And every stage of growth, whether at the family and all, and I can tell you, even when you're serving in the army, the biggest security you carry is maa ki dua. There is nothing bigger than that. और चोट भी लगती है तो हाय माँ ही सबसे पहले नजर आता है. From that respect, from that recognition to that role, where does things start slipping? You've been into leadership positions. I'm sure even you started from a student life, risen to this level. In this complete path, where does start things slipping, and how exactly to ensure that slip doesn't take place?
Slip as in the role of a woman as...
Role of a woman, and somewhere or the other from that magnanimity, that big role you have, how does that get minuscule to getting itemized sometime? How does that get minuscule to treating you as this is your job, you were not doing something great? I hope I clarified.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for asking this question, because now we are looking into the eyes and really not talking rose picture we are not talking about. First of all, I'd like to thank Paul, sir, for bringing out the point and really addressing the thing head on. I would like to mention, I've been dying to mention from the moment I've entered here, hats off to what you really brought out. You are one of those generation, Sagarika ma'am, that is heading on and not ashamed of being ambitious. Listen, girls and ladies, it's absolutely all right to be ambitious. And it is as good as your birthright as any other person. So one is that. Second, 3 years back, I took PMR and I walked into the room and I said, I was being interviewed by one of the IS officer, and he asked, you have been in the armed forces and you have always been into this leadership zone. How do you think, and please understand why I'm going to come back to this question, how do you think that you're going to understand the pain points of the women who you're going to deal? Believe you me, I gave an answer, but I was not ready for the reality. I answered that I gave was, please don't mind, sir, that I'm a woman. I can very well understand the pain that they're undergoing, and I can empathize, I can get into the shoes, I can talk to them, and it is more than possible that they'll open up to me. That was far away from the truth. 3 years, believe you me, I think India has done nothing for those women. Please don't mind me talking this on this podium, but India has done nothing. And we are part of it, because we have not understood what sir has brought out, that we have not designed the society for them. We have designed society for people who are slightly educated, girls who are slightly bold. That's all. We have not designed. Till now, I have got 5 missed calls from the ladies, from the women, asking that I need a job. Then I asked them, what kind of job? They said, somewhere that my child goes and before he comes back, I need that kind of a job. I said, that's not possible. I'm being prejudiced. I have my own perception glasses on, but that's a fact. And rightly mentioned so, half of the population of the country is not having job because I and people like me are prejudiced. The society is not designed for that. That is one aspect I would love everyone to talk about because we are not. Today, I and you are going to be sitting here talking that we are sitting at certain beautiful chairs wherein we can give out the rules and policies and they have to abide by that, but that's not the truth. There is a lady who is not that educated, 3rd pass, 12th pass, and she has to run her house. And she has only that much of education and she has to run within those barriers. Are we ready for that? She has to come home by 6 o'clock. Are we ready for that? She has got a small child whom again she has to ensure that he or she has to go to the school and come back. Are we ready for that? She has to look after the in-laws. Are we ready for that? We are not. Having said that, now I would like to address your point, sir. Itemized. Again, believe it or not, I've been talking. Please accept the fact only few single-digit percentage of our society, including men and women, are ready to take on the onus of this decision of the stage that we all reached into. Who gives the thought to a child that the girl is this? Who gives a thought to a boy that the woman is this? Who gives? We give. Who gives a thought that the woman is not capable or she is confined to a kitchen or she is supposed to come back to a certain time or she is not supposed to sacrifice certain thing? We give. So there is no third person sitting in the audience or sitting in the society. It is us. Only single-digit percentage of men and women are the ones who are bringing in changes. I remember when I gave birth to my child, when she came to my life, I asked my mother, see, I feel so bad that I have to leave her at your mercy. And you are supposed to be taking care. I said, why? She said, why are you bothered about it? Are you going to raise your child? Believe you me, this is the point. My 70-year-plus mother, and I don't have 10% of her thought. She said, is this what you think? Whom I've taught, who has got PhD and so on and so forth in her field, and she's one of the leaders, and she's at a position not many reach, and she's the one who is telling me that, oh my God, I'm feeling so sad that I'm supposed to leave my daughter back, and she'll grow up thinking, oh my God, my mother left me. She said, I have not taught my daughter to be this. You're not going to get reduced to this thought process. Grow up. Your daughter is going to grow thinking that, hey, look, my mother, this educated, this bold, is capable of handling me, job, people, multitask, and grow and give me that much of love. Sir, to give a concise statement, I am responsible. Many of like me are responsible for not growing out of that thought. And it is us who has to think and to educate, not to think. I went into a room 3 years back because when I started understanding the pain points of the ladies, I thought it is best that I go and talk about it in the forums. Can you imagine what the shock I got? I was not looked upon, two in the eyes. There were 2 other subordinates of mine. Only they were talked to. It was a shock. Why was that man not talking to me? Why was he not thinking or talking to me or discussing the point? Because he did not expect. It is only after 4th or 5th meeting that he started to really understand the point I was making. The point is, he was not used to it, a woman giving out decisions. It is only after establishing a credibility which came over a period of time, which was groomed by under his environment. Today that man and that individual is a great contributor in the causes that we work upon, but it took him some time. And the flaw lies in our society, in our thought process, in the women who mother their children, in the society which accepts it as normal and is absolutely all right, and it is a demand of the situation. Now that I'm calling out, we all need to call it chalta nahi hai, nahi chalega. I may sound a bit rude, upfront, blunt, sir, to the level of being a rebel, but that's a fact, sir. It is what we all, including men, have to stand up this cause. Ye nahi chalega. If she's a woman and she's speaking, she is just a separate gender who is not less than anyone. Sir, it is us.
Great. Thank you, Kansagi. Thanks for energizing. And I must say that surely, while I've been factually looking at the single-digit male thinking that way, but I'm also astonished and aghast with single-digit female thinking that way. So obviously, their thought process changes. The way world looks at them will automatically change. So that's awesome. Thanks for those thoughts. I do want to change a bit of gears and look at Soumya, and do want to talk about entrepreneurship and numbers. And when we're looking at women-owned MSME, obviously there's a huge thing coming up, startups, but 98% of the women ventures continue to be micro. They don't even reach a middle or a small. They continue to be micro. And both the requirement of funds and requirement of right mentorship. And this era of communication, when WhatsApps and websites and whatnot is available, even the lack of mentorship. So you running from the venture side, maybe you have already seen these facts and possibly something being done, what can be done. Because like earlier brought out, half of the society, if not contributing to progress, you will never progress. So how to bridge this gap, how to move forward and ensure that these things are available?
Well, thank you so much, and I'm very, very happy and emotional today that I'm sitting here. Just to give you a perspective that a couple of years back, I was blessed with twins, one boy and one girl. And I see that my girl is smarter, naughtier, stronger, and I'm sure she'll do much better than my probably son is. Don't tell my wife this, but I sometimes think that she's the prettier version of me. Why should she be brought up in a world where there's this difference, right, of opportunities? And that's where when I work in ISB and we support women entrepreneurs, we're living in very interesting times because, like you were mentioning, 39% of the MSMEs are actually owned and run by women, right? But when it comes to investments, only 4% of these investments go to women founders, right? Which is very stark. And the problem, like ma'am was mentioning, is the society and all of us, investors, all of us need to move from this charity framing to something which is equity framing, right? And that's something that we need to fix as a process. We don't need to have a separate program for women, a separate incubation and acceleration specifically for women. We need to bring in the room of evaluators at least equal number of women who are evaluating the founders and completely move this whole belief that people have that, oh, she's a woman, she's weaker, so we must support her. No. The whole mindset has to change from charity framing to equity framing and say, you're a worthy founder, you're running a company that's profitable, and I want my money to grow, so I have to invest in these women who are doing well. So I think that's where the problem is with investors. So, in an interview of startups that are being evaluated, because most of these investors is dominated by men. There are like 4 men sitting and trying to evaluate a woman founder. Put in 2 women founders as well, who understand that particular industry, that particular category of business, and then evaluate. So I think that's the basic problem in every walk of incubation, acceleration, startup funding that you see, and that needs to change. And that needs to change at a very basic level. Men have to be taught by the mothers that don't say that she is weak, she is somebody who's different, because they were not created different. It's just that you have to give them equal opportunities, and that has to change. So I think that's something that we see, and out of every 100 rupees that are being raised, only 4 rupees goes to a women founder. We in ISB run these programs where we bring in founders for 6 months into a boot camp. And we are very, very focused on giving equal opportunities to women founders, but we don't find applications. They don't apply. So, it's a problem. So we have to send this message back to people out there saying that if you're a woman founder, there is these programs that we run, the institutions are there to support you, and there are equal opportunities. So very interesting times where 39% MSMEs are owned by and run by women, but only 4 rupees or 4% of the funding goes to women founders. So we need to correct that, and I think it needs to happen at a very, very base level. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Soumya. I think, yes, it has to both sides. The evaluator also has to see the viewpoint. That's very correct. And as of now, I'll also like to quickly mention that today afternoon we are going to have at least 3, although there are many now, 3 women leaders who have achieved more than anybody thought, and they're doing first things in their life. And maybe I will say we have 4th one on the stage right now, form of Sparsh, who has, like what others are discussing, she's already achieving and walking ahead of that. So how's the journey? Please give comments to everybody else that what you could do so differently and how exactly you are able to shape up the strategy, growth, and that too in the sector, which again has been predominantly thought as men-dominated sector.
Thank you, sir. So just as a quick intro, this, as you mentioned in the beginning, we've done this Indian CCTV ecosystem in India, and the business was started by my father. So I'm just playing a role in terms of, taking that legacy forward. And I think there are 2 aspects to this role. One is what I experience, and one is what I own. What I experience is I've only actually entered this industry 6 months ago, and you can say, thanks to nepotism at a C-suite position. Which, counting my experience, I've worked in finance before, I've worked in investment banking, I've worked outside of India, and I very much relate to, everything that's been said on the stage today in terms of how the society is structured, how women perceive themselves, how the investment, environment perceives women. And while there are things that, yes, there are things that need to be done, and yes, there are mindsets that need to be changed, it is true that when you enter a room, when I've entered my, rooms in my industry, I have gone to conferences over the last 6 months, there is nobody that actually fits my demographic. And the demographic is not just women, it is also young people. So I made the effort of bringing 2 young people from my team today just to fill the room with a little bit more young people in this industry. Because what I see is a lack of representation, not just from a gender perspective, but also from an age perspective sometimes. And the reason that that matters is because we are part of that society that's trying to develop those accessible systems, which is where comes the part of ownership. What do I own? What can I change, and what can I bring through this perspective? What I can bring through this perspective, and what my organization has been trying to bring through this perspective, is this representation, not just in terms of saying, XYZ women need to be hired, but in terms of saying who builds these systems, and who is building the logic behind these systems, and are we including the use cases for everybody out there, whether that is a woman, whether that is a child, whether that's a young person, older person on the road. We build the hardware and the software for a CCTV camera that's guiding every movement of yours, whether you're inside a room, whether you're outside in the city, whether you're on a railway station, on an airport. Now when I start overlaying things like AI and cybersecurity on it, am I building the use cases that can identify every single person that is out on the road? Because my system cannot discriminate against a man or a woman or a child. My system needs to be unbiased, for which my organization needs to be unbiased and representative. I'm proud to say today on the stage, my factory, so not just in my corporate office, my factory has more than 50% women. And it is not just designed by stats, but by system, as ma'am said, because we can't just say we have to hire 50% women. We have to create environments that are suitable to their working lives. We have to acknowledge that they will have kids at home and parents at home that need to be supported in a certain way. And so this inclusion and representation and this journey and this position that I've been given by the privilege of being in the position that I am, I have to take what I experience and then make it a part of what I own, whether that is through the systems we design, through the organization that we build, or through the way that we see how security is perceived in the society. So I'm very thankful for, being in this position, but also very aware that this needs to become a part of our everyday conversation, especially in the systems that we build, because that is our contribution to the society. So that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Spur. That's awesome. And how intelligently she gives credit to father, but at the same time shows how much impact and difference she's making. That's awesome. At the same time, it's a very good moment. I'll request Ma'am Anna Roy to please join us on the stage straight away. Ma'am Anna Roy not only represents Niti Aayog, but is also heading the complete women entrepreneurship platform. And at the same time, I must say that just one meeting with her is so much energizing for everybody else, because she talks about rightful impact, not activities. And when I met her, it was already that what you need to achieve rather than what you need to do. So thank you, ma'am. Coming here is great. At the same time, while you were not present, we did provide a bit of contribution and credit to the government efforts which are going on, because traditionally, the women participation in the overall business, as was on a single digit promoters, single digit directorships, and a lot of those aspects. But the startups which have been listed since DPIIT has started working on it, out of 2,12,283, which was on January 31, 2026, 48% startup have women promoters and entrepreneurs. So that's awesome, and thanks to the contribution you've done. So why don't we straight away go to you, ma'am, and hear from you that how these programs are providing the rightful impact.
Thank you, and apologies for coming late. So I'm not somebody on number really, I'm more a systems person. So while I do not dispute the numbers, for me it is what actually is seen on the ground. I have been running a women entrepreneurship platform now for 8 years, and we used to earlier have Women Transforming India Awards. One of the challenges which we had to kind of address was when you identify an enterprise as a women-led enterprise, what is actually the rule? Are they there for namesake, or do they really have a control and impact and, decision-making position in that enterprise? In our research, we found that we don't have a very robust definition of women entrepreneurs. So each year we had Women Transforming India Awards. That was the challenge for the jury, to really, when the pitch was being made, to determine what exactly is the role of women in that enterprise, and whether they are really in the driving seat. So for me, I think while numbers are very good, very promising, now is the time when we need to look at the overall the substance in it. And in that vein, we have discussed with the Ministry of MSME, Corporate Affairs and Skill Development, and we propose, Niti Aayog is proposing to come up with a definition on women entrepreneurs, where besides ownership also, several other factors would be identified, and that hopefully will help us really determine what constitutes a women-led enterprise. Right. So that is one thing which we are proposing going forward. Then of course, central government has come up with many initiatives promoting women in economic activity, and I'm not in livelihood, I'm more in enterprise. Also, many state governments have come up with such initiatives. On WEP platform, we have mapped for 835 schemes, not specifically for women, but gender agnostic schemes which promotes entrepreneurship. The problem, I think, is lack of awareness about these initiatives. Also a lack of GRM which is on the ground, which does not allow most of the women to access it. And also some kind of a system where, we strive towards saturation, may not be the right word, but saturation for women to avail these schemes. So that is the second area which where we are working. So, and government can only do this much. It is a collaborative effort where government schemes are there. So government can achieve scale, size, but that nimbleness is not there. You know, making any change in government regulations, schemes is a sticky thing. So I think innovation, on ground, foot on the ground, and kind of taking it to the beneficiaries, the last mile, that is where a public-private partnership is something which will be very useful, and that is where WEP is working. It is a PPP initiative. So basically, I think government has done its bit. Now it's for the corporates, it's for the business sectors, it's for the civil society and other organizations to come forward and extend that helping hand to ensure that these initiatives are really become transformative with impact on the ground through various, bespoke interventions and various initiatives. Thank you.
No, thank you, ma'am. That's awesome. Yeah. Because it's the ecosystem that has to work, and government can be a great enabler, but if society overall, and this was a major part of discussion in this panel and earlier as well, the society have to give that space to women, not that based on a token or a donation, but where they belong and where they are. I think that has been a very echoing statement here.